How's it going, everybody? Over the past few days, I've been following the Google manifesto story that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. If you're not, basically, a software engineer at Google drafted what was dubbed the anti-diversity memo, arguing that Google was an ideological echo chamber, that there may be inherent differences between men and women, which result in disparities we see, and that not all disparities are the result of racism or sexism. In the memo, he says that he isn't denying that racism and sexism exist, and that he thinks that people need to be treated like individuals, not based on their identity. The latest update, Google has fired this engineer, saying that he was perpetuating gender stereotypes. And now we know this guy's name. It's James Damore. Apparently, there were people at Google saying that they refused to work with him, that they wanted Google to take action. They're saying this guy was arguing that men are biologically superior to women. So the first thing I want to address is the firing. Does a company have the right to fire anyone for any reason? No. We offer a lot of protections for employees of companies to avoid illegal or discriminatory activity. Now, Google is saying that he was essentially disruptive, that people wouldn't work with him, and so they took action. But this is where it gets interesting. Before he was fired, James Damore submitted a complaint to the National Labor Relations Board, arguing that he was being misrepresented and shamed by Google management. James Damore said, "I have a legal right to express my concerns about the terms and conditions of my working environment and to bring up potentially illegal behavior, which is what my document does." One of the first things that struck me as odd was seeing the left not get behind somebody who was arguing against discriminatory workplace practices. The left typically supports labor. But here's a guy who's actually filed a complaint with the National Labor Relations Board, not being defended by the left simply because they don't like his opinion. It really seems like people are pro-science, anti-science, pro-government, anti-government, pro-corporation, anti-corporation when it suits their political agenda and not whether it's actually the right thing to do. But let's move on now and look at this guy James Damore. Who is he? You know, because at the end of the day, is his opinion really that good? Is he right? I mean, certainly he's just some software engineer at Google. It's not like he's a scientist or anything. Oh wait, yes, he is actually a scientist. He was at Harvard and MIT, as well as many other places, actually working as a scientist and a researcher. And now he's an engineer at Google. Now, this is a guy who put together a memo that wasn't angry. It was calmly put together. He cited his sources, and he lodged some concerns. He said that the workplace environment was intolerant of certain ideas, that conservatives were shamed. It was an ideological echo chamber. And what does Google do? Well, they fire him. Now, let's be real. You know, Google is between a rock and a hard place, sure. Now, I truly believe that Google is a very progressive place. I've done phone calls with Google and YouTube. Google and YouTube have had me to their offices in San Francisco about progressive initiatives they're working on. But in this instance, once again, we're seeing a company say, what can we do to mitigate the damage? And Google's choice was fire this guy. Because for whatever the reason, companies tend to believe, and I said this before, that siding with the progressives is the right choice. It's the safer choice. And the reality is, it's probably because, at least to a certain degree, there's a fear of overlap with the law. Now, I'm not saying that's the entire reason, but now we're starting to get into interesting territory. Because the Civil Rights Act and other protection laws for discrimination don't specify race or gender, which means James Damore, a white man, certainly is protected under these laws too. And this is what I find fascinating, that he drafted a memo about complaints he had with his workplace and was fired for it. I certainly think he has a right to file a complaint with the National Labor Relations Board. Suffice it to say, this story is far from over because we're probably going to hear something about how this story develops, where it goes, and I'm certain that people are hitting up this guy James for interviews left and right. But now I want to move on to the social media reaction, because there's a ton of people writing that James was arguing in his memo that men are biologically superior to women. He was saying that men are inherently better at certain things or whatever. But I don't understand why there is always this drive to mischaracterize what a person is saying or doing. Certainly nowhere in this memo does he say men are biologically superior to women. He does say that there are potential biological or inherent differences between men and women, sure, but he never says any of these behaviors are better or worse. In fact, Jonathan Zunger, a former senior Google staff member, wrote a memo saying that this guy was arguing men are intrinsically different from women and we should stop trying to make it possible for women to work as engineers because it's not worth it. That's literally the opposite of what James Damore wrote in the memo. He said that they should find non-discriminatory ways to help bring more women into the workplace, arguing for part-time work options and collaborative programming. Literally, the memo says, he's not denying racism or sexism. He's not saying the world is fair. He wants people to be treated like individuals, and there should be solutions based on national averages, but suited for the individual. But I don't even want to argue the merit of the memo. I don't necessarily agree or disagree with this guy, James. Sure, he's a scientist. He cited his papers, and it's for other people to argue the merits of what he has to say. For me, it's mostly about let's be intellectually honest when it comes to these documents. No, he didn't say men are biologically superior to women, or that women shouldn't be in the workplace, or that it's not worth bringing women in. He flat out says, let's make it possible for women to come in here. And one of the biggest complaints I have about people saying that this memo was an argument for men being superior to women is that a front-end job and a programming job are no more inherently better than each other. Both jobs need to be done. Not only that, James says that men may prefer and that women may prefer. And he even shows that there's an overlap between all humans in general and that we are not these isolated figures that are entirely different from each other. He's actually arguing that we're mostly the same and that we can see a deviation based on national distribution. If we believe that empathy is inherently better than systemizing, then you could actually take this document to argue James Damore is saying women are better than men, because he doesn't actually say that either is better than the other, that just that they prefer different things. So to go back and reiterate kind of my final thoughts on all of this, is that here we have a guy who drafted a memo that a lot of people disagree with. He's actually a scientist. He's studied at Harvard and MIT. So he's a bit more qualified than most people to talk about a lot of these ideas, studying biology, for instance. And he cited sources for his claims in the document, and he argued for ideological tolerance. There's another kind of illegal. There's the socially illegal. You know, this guy didn't do anything illegal, but his life has been thrown through a loop because of it. And we're entering a world where everyone is a public figure. This is not the first time we've heard about someone writing something, it goes viral, and this person becomes the brunt of everyone's rage and anger on this political issue. But if you say the wrong thing, if you have the wrong opinion, and people find out, you're done. It's over. I can talk about the partisan divide every day. But what's this guy's options now? Is another company in Silicon Valley going to hire him after this controversy? Well, he took a stance against the progressive left. He calls himself a classic liberal, but is someone going to hire him now? Regardless of whether or not he was right or wrong, there is a PR problem attached to this guy now. Certainly a conservative company will hire him, and then all we're doing is pushing that left-right divide over and over and over again. If James had drafted a memo saying that he flat out hated this particular race and that they should be all fired immediately and kicked out of the country, then yeah, I'd be like, whoa, like that guy's, you know, bit out of his gourd. So the correct response would be, give him a warning. Hey, James, what you're doing is making people uncomfortable. We need to deal with this. You're being reprimanded. Don't do it again. Keep your mouth shut. No, they just fired him. So we're going to see more. I guarantee it. He's filed a claim with the National Labor Relations Board citing potential illegal activities. So I'd love to see the left come and defend, you know, labor in this instance. But for now, it's just another rift in the ongoing cultural civil war. This time, it was a classical liberal. Someone who was arguing that sexism and racism are real, life isn't fair, but people should be more tolerant of ideas, and that Google should treat people like individuals. Apparently, that is too controversial at this point. It's offensive. You've got to get rid of these people, I guess. That's scary, because I will always stand for free and open exchange of ideas, no matter how bad. But let me know what you think. Comment below. Click the like button if you liked the video. We'll keep the conversation going in the comments. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Timcast. And if you want to support the work that I do, you can go to timcast.com/donate. Give whatever you'd like or give nothing at all. My videos will always be free and available every day. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.